Despite disappointing military adventures, despite economic shocks, despite political upheaval, the United States remains a status quo power.
I'm Sean Lynn Jones. I'm the editor of International Security, a quarterly journal based here at the Belfer Center at the Harvard Kennedy School. Today, I'm talking to Patrick Porter, who is Professor of Strategic Studies at the University of Exeter, where he's also the academic director of the Strategy and Security Institute. He's also Senior Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute. And as of May 2018, he will be Chair in International Security and Strategy at the University of Birmingham. Professor Porter is the author of an article called Why America's Grand Strategy Has Not Changed: Power, Habit, and the U.S. Foreign Policy Establishment. The article appears in the spring 2018 issue of International Security. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Sean.
Can you briefly summarize the central argument of your article?
Yes, the habitual ideas of the U.S. foreign policy establishment make American grand strategy difficult to change. America is a very large and powerful state, and you would think that gives us great discretion to decide what kind of great power it would like to be. And yet, if you look at foreign policy debate and defence policy debate for the last few decades, the debate itself has been remarkably narrow. And this is because a very influential foreign policy class, sometimes known as the blob, exerts a great constraining effect, where there is debate, but the debate is very much how, not whether, to implement primacy.
So primacy is not just a condition, it's a deliberate strategy that the United States pursues. So why is it a problem that this is a very hard strategy to change? Why is your argument important?
I think it's a problem, first of all, because these decisions, these choices, are too important to become simply a matter of autopilot or groupthink. They involve significant upfront costs, significant risks. They implicate American national security in conflicts and problems far and wide. They could be exacerbating the fiscal pressures that the US state is under. They could be even placing America on collision course with Russia, China, and Iran. So even if this is the right strategy, it's a weighty enough one to think about much more deliberately, much more consciously.
Now, this term, the blob, I think really became popularized a few years ago when a former Obama administration official, Ben Rhodes, introduced it. And it seems to refer to Washington insiders as well as the bureaucrats and the experts who are behind U.S. grand strategy. Could you tell me a little bit more about what the blob is and what it does? Well,
I think Ben Rhodes was right. I think there is a blob, and it is a cohesive, elite class of security experts that's very effective, that's very well connected, that has privileged access to power. And what's interesting about the blob is the way in which it straddles different worlds, not just policy making and government, but through a revolving door into foundations, think tanks, the corporate world, academia, and public commentary on foreign policy.
I think President Donald Trump was the ultimate change candidate. He made sweeping promises to change grand strategy for the United States in some fundamental ways. So what are your reactions? You're based on a year or so's worth of observation.
I'm impressed with how quickly the presidency of this flame-throwing candidate, who ran as a real revisionist, has been brought into line on the fundamentals of American grand strategy. If you look at what the Trump administration is up to, embracing Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states as the bulwark of America's leadership in the Middle East and the Gulf, reinforcing NATO and Obama's Eastern Reassurance Initiative on NATO's eastern flank, reinforcing the effort in Afghanistan, reaffirming America's desire to have primacy in Asia and to resist a rising China. It may not be a president who is stylistically normal, but his grand strategic level of decisions are remarkably traditional.
If you were advising the Trump administration on how to deal with the blob and how to deal with U.S. grand strategy, are there any lessons that come out of your analysis?
What I think needs to happen is for a discussion to take place much more intensively about how Washington makes foreign policy in the first place. So there's a very large literature on competing grand strategies and what they should be and their disadvantages and advantages. There's less focus amongst people who study this in internal ways in which government can get itself off groupthink.
I've been talking to Patrick Porter, who's Professor of Strategic Studies at the University of Exeter. As of May 2018, he's going to be the Chair in International Security and Strategy at the University of Birmingham. Professor Porter is the author of an article called Why America's Grand Strategy Has Not Changed: Power, Habit, and the U.S. Foreign Policy Establishment. It appears in the spring 2018 issue of International Security. Thank you again.
Thank you, Sean.